So I want to thank you for your recent purchase of the 2018 Mazda CX-5. I'm going to go over a few features with you today that I think will help you along your ownership experience. So I'm going to go over a few different features of your car with you, mainly focus on your stereo and settings. So if you focus here on this, you'll see that you've got 5 options on screen. The very first one is communications. Pushing down will automatically go into pairing mode, which we'll go over here in a little bit. The other ones, you have a music to your left, navigation to your right, settings to the far right, and applications to the far left. Music is the easiest of the options here, as when you push down on it, it automatically defaults to asking you for audio sources. You're going to see a multitude of lists in here based off the trim level of your car. FM, which does include HD radio, AM, XM for Grand Touring models and higher, AHA radio, Pandora, Stitcher, Bluetooth, and while I cannot access these below, there is USB 1, USB 2, and auxiliary, which will highlight if something is plugged into those ports. In here you also have auto memory, which will find local stations to you, favorites, which will take you directly to your favorites, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the tutorial, HD radio, which will give you digital stations versus your regular analog stations, and often multiple options for the same station that you've been listening to. Easy for scanning if you want to find a station, and if you already know the station, you can default to the old school tuning stations where you can actually pick the exact station you want. And again, you will see in some cases where it will pop up options for HD versions of that station. Skipping forward and backwards, and then even going to your settings, which we'll address here in a moment. Now, if you go over to your right, you have navigation. Very simple, very easy. Again, defaulting to where you need to start at, which is entering a destination. Clicking down on enter destination will give you an option. You can go to find address, navigating home, points of interest, favorite addresses, even go into your history and geo coordinates if you manage to have geo coordinates for your destination. You can see information for the navigation system. If you had a destination input, you can cancel that destination. You can look for points of interest that are either nearby where you currently are, nearby where you are going, or along the route. When you put in a destination, you can see the route and change edits and preferences of that route. Even changing the view. This always goes to the next view. So next view will be 2D, next view will be 2D north, and we can go back to 3D. Settings, where you can go over different settings like your volume controls, different guiding settings, route settings, even traffic settings. Over here you have your regular settings, and we're going to focus mostly on this today, where you've got your display settings, which are very simple. Turning off the display, turning it off but leaving the clock visible, changing whether your brightness automatically changes from automatic to day or night mode, brightness controls, contrast controls, and you can even change them separately. So lights on, I can change it to where when the lights are on, it'll be in night mode. I can come down and now change the brightness when lights are on. And then when I go back to automatic, it'll be bright like this during the day, but at night it'll be a little brighter than it was before. We can toggle over left and right with the commander control that I'm using here to safety settings, which is where you can go in here and tweak your safety settings when equipped. You have lane departure and lane keep assist settings, where you can turn on and off the intervention aspect of it. You can address the sensitivity of it. You can change the lane departure alert aspect of it, and also how it alerts you, from vibrating in your steering wheel to a beep sound, or even rumble strip, which is side specific. Once you change that setting, you can either change vibration strength or audio settings for those different alerts. Sound settings are in here, which you can get there from the music sourcing or directly from the settings screen. You can adjust your bass and treble, either where they default to it flat or how you prefer them. You can change the fading of it, where you can change it from fading to the front or rear, balancing left and right. But when you get our Bose equipped packages, you're going to see a couple extra options in here. So normally defaulting with something called ALC, which stands for automatic level control, which just raises volume based off the speed you're driving. Very common in most of our competitors. But when you get to our upgraded premium settings, you get these options here. Bose Audio Pilot is the replacement of ALC. What it's going to do is listen to the sounds in the car, figure out where those frequency changes are coming from, and changing every one of your speakers different to compensate for that setting, with the whole goal being of you never noticing a change, versus with features like ALC, where you notice the volume will pitch as you raise your speed and go down as you lower your speed. Center point surround sound will actually use your center speaker to give you a true surround sound feel. And while we're obviously not sitting directly in the center of the car, it is designed for offset, which is why it says center point, offset seating locations. So even the people in the back seat will get that experience. Clock settings, which are very simple. If you have navigation, we'll have GPS sync turned on, and the only thing you're really changing is whether or not you want it to be in regular time or military time. If you do want to change it yourself, you'd like to have New York settings when you're in California, or whatever the situation may be, you can turn off GPS sync and set it yourself, as well as that'll allow you to access daylight saving time settings as well. Now, vehicle gets a little more detailed, where you do have 4 options in here. The very first one being very simple. Do you want rain sensing windshield wipers on? This is the electronic way of deactivating that system. You can also deactivate it directly from the column stock while having it on or changing to intermittent wipers. So you do have full control over that. Door locks, you have a lot of options in here. Auto lock mode. So this one here is when does it lock, when does it unlock for you? It defaults to the normal safety setting, which is lock when you start driving and unlock once you've turned the car off, allowing you to get to your destination, check your surroundings before exiting the vehicle and the door is unlocking. Some people like myself who do a little bit of carpooling, they like the setting above, which will still lock when I drive, but unlock when I pull up to the carpool lane and just put the car in park. You have multiple options that are different than those, based off just locking, never unlocking. A lot of different changes, and of course doing nothing if you prefer it to not do anything for you. Key lock volume. I do recommend turning this on high because of a setting we're going to change in a minute, but this is where it lets you know when it has locked, both when you push the key as well as the automatic locking function, which we'll talk about here in just a couple seconds. Auto relocking time, if you like to play around with people and you hit the unlock button and you want to change how long they have to get to the door before it locks, you can change that setting. Also, unlock mode. Right now it sets to unlock when you push the key on your key fob, the button on your driver's door. One time push unlocks just that driver's door. Twice unlocks the passenger door. You can change it to be the same way that your passenger door functions, which is pushing it once unlocks all the doors every time. So you can change that depending on your preference. Walkaway lock I do recommend turning on. I will deactivate it here just because it's a demo model, but when you walk away from your car and you've exited with your keys, it will automatically lock for you. And this is on touring model and higher that are equipped with the advanced entry system. So you can set it to automatically walk away. You will notice when it's locking, because when you get out of the car, it will beep one time, letting you know that you've exited the vehicle with the key. And when you take a couple steps away, you'll hear a second beep, which is letting you know that it has locked. If you do not hear those beeps, that's letting you know that either you have left the car running, you have left the keys in the car, you have left a door or the trunk unlatched. Something is letting you know that it did not lock efficiently for you. So just always make sure you check if you don't hear that beep. Turn signals, again, very basic. 3-flash turn, which is one of my favorite features. If you're an aggressive driver or you're switching lanes more often versus just making hard left and hard right turns, you can tap the turn signal. It'll blink 3 times and turn itself off. That does work for both left and right turns. And then you still always have your regular turn signal. You can change your turn signal volume if you like, and you can always reset it if you change the settings and don't remember where you left it at. Lighting controls, there are quite a few options in here. We'll touch on just a few of them. You have interior light timeout when the door is closed, each of those having their own settings controls. High beam control, not only are these lights automatic, your high beams will be set to automatic, and you can deactivate that function here. Adaptive front lighting system. Not only do you have very good lights in the car, they are adaptive. They will pivot left and right as you're going around curves and bends. They will automatically level up and down based off the angle of the road you're driving on, or also the amount of passengers and weight you have in the vehicle. Lights on volume. This doesn't work when you have automatic lights on, but if you deactivate that function or buy a car that doesn't have it, you can actually change it to where it will beep to remind you that the lights are on. You also have headlight off timer. So if you want to set a certain amount of time before the lights will deactivate and turn off themselves, you can set that. Default's at 30 seconds, which is typically what most people will do. But say you live in a townhouse where you park outside the house and want to shine the light on the door while you're unlocking it late at night for safety, you can change it to one of the longer settings. Works great in parking garage, things like that. Coming home and leaving home light have settings. Also, automatic headlights have settings. Not only do they come on and off automatically, but you can change the sensitivity of that setting. Do they come on earlier at dawn or dusk? You know, you have different settings you can change for those. And of course, again, if you've changed quite a few settings in here, you can reset it if you forget what you've changed and want to go back to start. Devices is another way to get to pairing your Bluetooth. It's very simple. Open up your Bluetooth settings, add a new device. It will become discoverable for a few seconds. Go into your phone settings, specifically iOS or Android, and go into your Bluetooth settings and hit pair or search. It's very simple from that point on. It will give you a pairing number. As long as the numbers matches on the car and your device, you'll hit yes on both devices, and it will start the syncing process. You would then be given the option of downloading your phone books if you like, using emergency 911 if you want the safety settings of being in an accident and having it contact the police for you. even accessing your text messages. You have settings controls for all those. So those are your settings. This is your basic layout. Again, you're going to have a few options. When CarPlay launches here later this month, we'll go into application settings and change some of that. But this is your basic setting controls for your new Mazda CX-5. All right, so this is your air conditioning control settings here. It's very simple. If you've got automatic air conditioning at your house, you know how this works. You just have driver and passenger setting controls here. So very simply turn on automatic. Whatever your settings control are there, it will automatically maintain that for you, whether it needs to blow the air conditioner harder or slower to get to that. You can manually control it if you like, as well as manually controlling where the air conditioner is blowing. I do always recommend making sure you pay attention to this, because you do have rear vents in the car, and having it on the foot settings will use your vent controls that are underneath your seats, as well as the rear controls that have a separate vent for the control as well. You will see that the passenger has a different temperature. You can control both of them separately, or deactivating that will allow you to control both sides with one. Above this, you'll see heated seat controls, not just on and off. You do have high, medium, and low on both driver and passenger sides. Alright, so here you have some controls in your steering wheel for your safety settings as well as your convenience settings. Very simple. On your left side, you've got your information control, which allows you to change what information is displayed here on the screen, whether it's your safety settings, whether it's your miles per gallon, miles to empty, trip A or trip B. You have all the controls over that. To the left of that, you have volume up and down, as well as voice controls, answer and ignore for phone calls, as well as hanging up you can use there. To your right side, you're going to have your cruise control, and we'll talk about that first. So going back to your vehicle settings here, you can see there are two bars to the left and right of the vehicle. That's going to be your lane departure warning system. Over a certain speed, it will actually light up and let you know if you are slightly veering out of those lanes, and your lane keep assist will engage at that time, nudging you back into your lane, vibrating your steering wheel to alert you what's happening. If you want to activate your cruise control, just hit the on mode here. You'll see now there's one block in front of your car. You can use this setting here to change the sensitivity of this setting. So not only will you set the speed you want to drive at using these buttons here, setting set when you're driving, and then up and down to raise the speed as you like. You'll see over here in the far right, you will notice it will say the speed you are driving, and then also now the distance you want to be behind the car in front of you. So if you'd like to ride a little closer to the cars that are in front of you, leaving very little space for people to cut in front of you, use one bar. If you want to be so far behind the car in front of you that other vehicles can easily cut in front of you, continually slowing you down, use 4 bars. I generally recommend for general driving uses using 3 and 2 in some scenarios, but you have the control of that yourself. Turning on and off right down here at the bottom. Your wiper controls here, very easy. You can turn them on and off, but you will notice there is an automatic function that will automatically turn your windshield wipers on when it starts raining and adjust the speed based off of how fast it's raining. You can adjust the sensitivity here, and then this one here is for your rear windshield wiper, easily turning it on and off. That one is a manual setting, so you will do that as needed. You can also use the windshield wiper fluid by pushing all the way up, which I won't do here just for sake of not getting the car wet again, but also for the rear has the same option. All right, so this here are your headlight controls, and very simple. You see that it's an offsetting now. Turning automatic, it will turn your lights on and off as needed. You do have parking lights and physical headlights on if you prefer to manually control it yourself. You do also have fog light controls, which are separate. If your fog lights are on, they will only come on when your headlights are on. So if you leave it in automatic, they won't be on during the day unless your headlights find need to come on. You also have high beam control, so you can manually turn your high beams on if you like, but in automatic function, they will turn your high beams on as needed. You won't have to worry about that. It does deactivate if there's oncoming lights coming your way, if you're moving too low, or you're driving in an area that's already well lit enough. Here on the dashboard, just to the left of your steering wheel, you do have a few different buttons. One is your power liftgate button, which is very simple. Hold the button to open it. One more time will stop it. Holding it down will close it. To the right of that, you have your traction control off button. Never really a good time to turn it off unless you truly need it. And then to the right of that, you have your lane departure off. While you can change that in your settings of your stereo, this here is for the quick times you need to deactivate it. Driving in some metro areas where lanes are a little bit smaller and the system may activate more often, you do have the ability to quickly turn it off and quickly turn it on.